narrator, and it's well done. And I will tell you that this episode is heartbreaking when it comes to Zach Ertz. I mean, you realize how respected he is, certainly by coaches and other players, and B, you're watching a player play more likely than not. I'm guessing, it doesn't have to be, but more likely than not, that may have been his last play of his career at his age with an Achilles injury, which is a torn ACL, which will keep him out into the early part of next season at the very earliest that he would be back. That's tough to watch because he has been a really good player. By the way, I'm curious real quickly because I don't know if it was on the show last night, and I don't know where this is coming to me from, but somebody said, maybe it was on Hard Knocks on that episode, that Zach Ertz is a surefire Hall of Famer. Did you hear that?
I believe I did.
That's not true?
I don't know, man. He's very well liked around the league, and like
well liked,
and that doesn't get into the Hall of Fame. I know that's for sure.
Yeah.
But it's the preparation and the longevity of it all.
He's got 3 Pro Bowls. He's got 3 Pro Bowls to his, 13-year career. 3 of them.
Go ahead catching the Super Bowl?
Well, yeah. I mean, he certainly has had some success in the postseason. One of the things I pointed out about Jake last week, about Jacoby, is that when you compare regular seasons to Gary Zimmerman or others that have gone into the Hall of Fame from his era, they're comparable, and Zimmerman's resume is actually a little bit better. Jimbo Covert's resume is not better, but Jake played almost a second career in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And that's, you don't get voted into Pro Bowls based on postseason.
True.
And Jake was dominant, in the postseason, as was their running game. They've got 2 of the all-time 3 rushing performances, Timmy Smith and John Riggins, in Super Bowl history. Now I'm looking at Zach Ertz's playoff career, 54. So total games 9. All right, 9 playoff games he's played. And wait a minute, hold on, is that right? Yeah, 9 playoff games and 54 receptions. So an average of 6 receptions and 3 total touchdowns. It's not an overwhelming playoff resume.
For sure.
Did I hear that on that show, or did I hear that in another conversation?
No,
about Zach Ertz?
I'm pretty sure it got brought up because they were giving Zach a lot of love in the episode, which was really tough when you knew what was coming. But I'm pretty sure they called him a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, well, look, this isn't a conversation about Zach Ertz's, Hall of Fame worthiness. We're not going to take calls on that the 2 days after he tore his ACL and his career may have ended. He's been a very, very good NFL tight end. The year he had in Philadelphia, he had 116 receptions in 2018, which is, for him, like the all-time outlier. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that is the record for a tight end in a season. I think that's the record for receptions by a tight end in a season. But anyway, tough loss for him, and wish him the best. The show's excellent. There was some good, prep for Jaden Daniels leading into the game on Sunday. Some interesting stuff with, Cliff as they got ready sort of by themselves before a practice last week. Enjoy it. This is the historic, the marquee, the iconic division in the NFL. I mean, when you take the Super Bowl era, this division has more Super Bowl winners and more Super Bowl participants than any other division in the history of the league during the Super Bowl era. The rivalries are as entrenched as any in the NFL. I mean, I would say that the NFC North, that, the Packers, Bears, Lions, Vikings, those rivalries are really long-term, super entrenched, super iconic. But that would be the only other division I'd really compare it to rivalry-wise. I know Pittsburgh and Baltimore have had a thing for 15 years, 16, 17 years. But, Dallas and Philly, Dallas and Washington, Washington and the Giants and the Eagles have had this thing for 60 years. So it's different. I wouldn't put the AFC West, Broncos, Chargers, Chiefs, Raiders into that category. I certainly wouldn't put, any of the South divisions, the AFC South or the NFC South into that conversation, nor would I even the NFC West. The AFC West, Broncos, Chargers, Chiefs, Raiders, interesting to bring that one in. A lot of longtime rivalries. I mean, every one of those teams has a rivalry with one another, especially Raiders, Chiefs, Raiders, Broncos. Anyway, really kind of cool to see all four. It would be better if the year were a year in which like all four teams were fighting for something, but you've got two of the worst teams in the league this year in the NFC East in Washington and New York. In addition, one last thing on the Hard Knocks. In addition to, the observation that these coaches, especially Kafka and Schottenheimer, have a difficult time communicating without the F word. I don't think Dallas. There's something about watching the Cowboys and watching their players and watching the response to Schottenheimer. I just don't see it. I know that they have a schedule that's Vikings, Chargers, Washington, Giants to finish up. And they'll be favored. I think they'll be favored over the Chargers at home. So let's just assume they're going to be favored in all four of those games. I bet you they don't win all four. And they have to win all four to get a playoff spot. So I think Dallas is not a playoff team. And the fact that the defense had sort of been resurrected a little bit, and then Detroit, went for 44 points and 400 and something yards, and it was something like 8 yards per play against the Cowboys. It's still their Achilles heel. They're better on defense than they were before Quinnen Williams, but they're still not very good on defense. By the way, speaking of the Cowboys, hit the what do you got sounder for me. So I saw a story on this early this morning, and it was written as a way to sort of honor the first ever Hail Mary. Now, I know that there was like in the 60s or 50s, there was an alley-oop pass between the 49ers quarterback and the 49ers receiver, but it wasn't the Hail Mary play. The drop back, midfield-ish, throw it up into the air, everybody goes down to the end zone, and then you try to make the catch. Well, we are coming up on the 50-year anniversary of what, many believe to be the original Hail Mary, and it has been dubbed as the Hail Mary play. Dallas and Minnesota in the 1975 playoffs in December of 1975. Back then, 14 regular season games and the playoffs started in December. I mean, sometimes you had playoff games as early as like December 20th, December 21st. Dallas went to Minnesota, the old, stadium in Bloomington. Frigid weather, of course, always. I mean, that was the 1970s in Minnesota. They seemed to play playoff games there every year. Washington played multiple playoff games in Minneapolis in the 1970s, and it was always about how cold will it be. And down 14-10 on the, basic last play of the game, Staubach drops back, and he throws a deep ball to Drew Pearson, the first in the original number 88 for the Cowboys at wide receiver. He clearly pushes off, no offensive pass interference penalty against Nate Wright, and he pulls it in and goes into the end zone. Now, they dubbed that play the Hail Mary, and that's where that, kind of play comes from, because it was Hail Mary full of grace, the Lord. I could do 3 Hail Marys if I felt like I needed one, if I needed 3, if I was directed to do 3 after a confessional. I haven't been to confession in forever. I don't know about you guys who are Catholic. But anyway, I digress. The interesting thing about this play is when you watch it, it's not what the Hail Mary turned into. It's a deep bomb for Drew Pearson, but it's not the deep bomb into the end zone that turns into a jump ball. It's actually caught before the goal line, and he runs into the end zone with it, and it's almost man coverage, borderline man coverage. But that's where Hail Mary came from. And then later on in the decade, a few years later, Steve Bartkowski, the quarterback of the Atlanta Falcons, they really developed the original, what we now know as a Hail Mary. They threw the first jump ball into the end zone where you've got receivers and DBs, and it's basically a fight for the football in the end zone with a big, looping pass that brings rain. But the original Hail Mary 50 years ago, I think in a couple of weeks, and there was a story written about it today, actually isn't the Hail Mary that we think about, the style of Hail Mary. Noah Brown style. Jaden to Noah Brown style. I don't think the Cowboys are going to they're not going to do it. The NFC East winner is going to be the Eagles. As much as they seem to be in turmoil, they got the Raiders this week. They have us twice. They're not losing to us twice. Is it possible we could steal one? Probably not, but it is the NFL. Anything can happen. I think all they got to do is win basically 2 more, and they're in, because I don't think Dallas is going to run the table. All right. So Hard Knocks, total recommendation. Really like it. Want to read this email from Connor that I got. Connor writes to me all the time. I know Connor. He is the son of a friend of mine that I went to Maryland with. And Connor's a big fan, younger fan, and really, really into it. He writes, Kevin, I have several subjects for you, but I'll start with your own recency bias. The worst defense in your life? Do you not remember the defenses your boy had to overcome? My boy being Kirk Cousins, in either 16 or 17? Their third down defense was one of the worst in league history. I think that's true. Or how about Ron's last year, where we gave up 50-yard touchdowns every single week, and we'd get quotes like, aside from a few plays, the defense played pretty well. Yes, I do remember some of those. Those teams didn't have horrible injury luck either. They just stunk. We can't seem to stop anyone, but we have definitely seen worse. So he had several subjects for me. That's the first. I thought about the 26. When I made the statement on Monday, I said, I'm convinced, and Keim and I talked about it yesterday. I don't think I'm going to budge off of my current feel, and it could be recency bias, understood. You get caught up in the moment. But I think this is the worst defense I've ever seen Washington have. And I went back just to compare to like 2016. 2016, they did some things well. They actually were in the middle of the pack in takeaways. They had 21 takeaways for the year. This team can't take the ball away at all. They're next to last in the league with 7. So they at least they got turnovers, not at a high rate, but at a mid-level rate. The thing that, to me, the run stopping is a major problem, and the numbers for this season don't reflect what they've been recently. And when I've said this is the worst defense I've ever seen, I really am talking about more recently, and it is in part because of all of the pieces they're missing. I do think that one of the things we've learned about this team is, even with Dorrance Armstrong and with Dietrich Wise and with John Baptiste and with Amos and with Lattimore and with, where the list goes on, Will Harris. I still think this would have been a bad defensive football team, but it wouldn't be as bad as it is right now. Like, their rush defense, in just yards allowed, is actually, 29th. It's not dead last. It feels like it's dead last, but it's only 29th. The Jets, Giants, and Bengals all have worse rush defenses. By the way, did you hear that? The Giants. So maybe we can think about running the football a little bit Sunday on what's supposed to be a brutally cold day in East Rutherford. But if we had what we have now and what we're watching now, I think it would be easily the worst run defense in the league right now. They're giving up regularly 5+ yards per carry in recent games. And then passer rating, dead last in the league, opponent passer rating. And it's actually not even close. Like, Washington, the average passer rating against Washington is 109.6. All right. Well, actually, Dallas is next at 109.1, but then there's a 6-point difference passer rating between Cincinnati's 103.3 and Washington's 109.6. So they're giving up the worst passer rating. And so I think why I believe this is the worst defense I've ever seen in the moment, the last, call it month and a half, after they really became kind of a shell of what they were at the beginning of the season, is there's not one thing that they do well. There's not even one thing that they do at like an average level. They're horrible against the run. They're horrible against the pass. They're not a good pass rush team. They don't take the ball away, and they can't get teams off the field on third down. Like, it's truly terrible. The 2016 defense was excruciating because they were so good offensively. I mean, they led the league in yards per drive. They led the league in third downs. They led all these top, the true measures, EPA, all of that stuff, yards per play, all of that stuff. They were in the top 3 in the league in 2016, and they just couldn't get off the field. They could not get off the field on third down. I'm looking up because I didn't look this part up. 2016 regular season. Yeah, Washington it was historically awful for a while. It ended up dead last on third down at 46.6%. And I do recall, Connor, it wasn't just that they were bad on third down. It was like it didn't matter what the third down was. It's like 3rd and 13. They're not gonna get a stop here. It's got to be 3rd and 30 to feel good about it. They were a terrible third down team. There's no doubt about it. But they got takeaways. And that's a big difference. I mean, they have 3. That team in 16 games had 3 times as many takeaways as this team has currently in 13 games. And do we feel confident that over the next 3 or 4 even, that they're going to become a huge takeaway team? So I would say that the 2023 team, pretty bad defensively, no doubt, really bad. But some of the statistical numbers don't match up to what this team is. The 2023 pass defense the third down defense wasn't. It was like 26th in the league. And then their pass defense, the passer rating against, was pretty bad, actually. It was dead last. You might be right about the 23 defense. 2017's defense actually was much better than the 2016 defense. They actually had a chance defensively that particular year. But anyway, the other thing that Connor wrote to me was actually an interesting subject. He wrote, "Please ask Steve," as in Steve Suter, and I have him on my podcast today to break down the film, "if he thinks Cliff calls a different game plan with Mariota than with Jaden. Cliff or Dan called Jaden an eraser." Yes, that was a term used last year and even early this year and in the offseason. Jaden's an eraser of a bad play call or of a play that isn't there, that's called. And Connor writes, which I think leads to Cliff being more lax with his play calling. He doesn't have to be perfect because Jaden sees it so well, but he isn't seeing it as well this season, and it's hurting our efficiency and effectiveness on offense. But when we have Mariota, the play calling seems much more deliberate, balanced, and an emphasis to make it easy on Mariota. I think we have to remind ourselves Jaden is still a second-year player and could use the benefit of good play calling. Yeah, we haven't talked a lot about this, but last week, let's just use the last 2 games as an example. Denver's defense, outstanding. Minnesota's defense, outstanding. Different because Minnesota does a lot of exotics and they try to confuse you and they blitz more, whereas Denver has probably better players. I mean, Nick Bonito was the best player on the field, in the game a week ago Sunday night. You could certainly argue that. And he certainly ended the game on the 2-point conversion. And there was a very, very intentional game plan to not let Denver's defense wreck the game. And it was obvious if you had watched Denver, you cannot be one-dimensional. And then when you're throwing it, it's got to be quick. It's got to be quick game. And everything they ran in the first half was quick game. Collinsworth kept pointing it out over and over again. This is the best pressure team. This is the best, the whole thing, but they don't have a chance because everything is short, quick. I mean, it was snap to Mariota, turn, fire. And it was all about yards after catch. And they ran the ball. Now, they didn't run the ball overall like a game in which you would say, wow, they were really effective running the ball, but they were, and they used Mariota in the run game. He had designed runs. He had option runs. And then Rodriguez had 11 carries, and Bill had 4 or 5 carries, and they averaged, over 4 yards per carry. I'm looking at it right now. They had 33 rushes in the game against Denver. Now, the game went to overtime. Second half, it became almost like Denver gave up on trying to get to him because the quick game worked and the run game worked. And then they started dropping him back more. And he became an incredible gunslinger in that fourth quarter and in overtime. But there's no doubt that the game plan was different, I think, for Mariota and the Denver game than it was Minnesota. But there's also a different game plan based on the opponent every week. But we did not see, other than that first drive, an emphasis to really make the run game the centerpiece and to make the quick game the centerpiece. So there was some quick game in the game against Minnesota. There was some quick outs. There was quick, the 4th and 1 is certainly, it's not quick game, but it's about as quick as you can see a quarterback under center unload that ball to a spot for a first down. There was some quick game, but there was more drop back than there was. Yeah, I think it's been interesting because they've, when you're losing and you're losing big, you try things that are different. Washington tried something different last week against Denver on offense. It worked. Dan Quinn has tried something different on defense, starting with the Miami game when he took over play calling. And, for a 2-game stint, it didn't really work, but it was better, or in his terms, it was more acceptable than the Detroit game or the Seattle game. It's heavy zone coverage, eyes on quarterback, eyes on ball, play everything underneath in front of you, tackle, and then let's try to get red zone stops. I'm interested. My own sense of the Minnesota plan and the Denver plan is different. The question is it different because they just trust Jaden to, be Superman? That's it's a fair thought when it comes, because they've said it. They called him the eraser last year. They said, we know at a certain point, if it's not there, he can make us all look good. And he did it over and over and over again last year. But he also did it in timing of the play. It's not like every play was an off-schedule miracle. It's not the way he played last year. There's a lot of stuff that worked on schedule. But when it wasn't there, he made them right. And this year, it's been tougher to make the coordinator right, especially when you look at the Green Bay, Seattle, and Dallas games, because those were the games in which they were manhandled up front more than in any other game this year. And in the Seattle and Dallas games in particular, they just didn't have any receivers on the field. So we'll see. 4 more games. And let me remind everybody, Dan Quinn, 20-4 in his final 4 games as a head coach. 20-4. Somehow he doesn't lose his teams at the end of the year, or he hasn't yet. All right, conversation when we come back about whether or not Quinn or Adam Peters' seats actually should be warm. I think there's one scenario in which they would warm up more than they are for me right now. I'll tell you what that is when we come back. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com. Max and I were just talking during the break because I had asked him, a friend of mine texted me to say, you got to talk about what the junkies were talking about at the end of the show. And I guess what they were talking about is this, that according to Pro Football Focus, Jaden Daniels has only slid 4 times on 41 scrambles. By comparison, Drake May has slid on 15 of 50 scrambles. And I guess the question was, how much does this worry you? My immediate reaction would be, without having just any real data in front of me, I'd have to go back and really look at the 41 scrambles. Jaden gets out of bounds a lot on scrambles. Maybe Drake May does too, but he's not necessarily a slide guy. He gets out of bounds, or he kind of gives himself up, he slides. I've seen him slide, but I've seen him get out of bounds to avoid a hit as a scrambler. More like the other day as a scrambler, that 3rd and 5 that I talked about. Harrison Smith's coming up and he just sort of sidesteps. That was always his move at LSU. We've seen it a lot too here, where he's, looking, and then he'll just do that little sidestep out of bounds. How much does this worry you? I don't know. I would have to look at all those scrambles, because my gut tells me that he probably gets out of bounds with his speed and his elusiveness more than a lot of other quarterbacks, but I could be wrong. That would be my initial reaction to it. Okay, so I wanted to talk about something that I think a lot of you out there believe should be true. Not necessarily you think it's going to happen, or that you even want it to happen, although some of you do. And we took a lot of those calls yesterday and even the day before, I think. And that is just about the idea of people getting fired, or people should be in warm seats right now. And those people really are Peters and Quinn. I think Kingsbury is certainly a target for a lot of you at this point. And I'm not saying that there aren't things that bother me. I couldn't stand what happened on Sunday. I mean, every game is its like own entity. They really are in this league. The week before, phenomenal preparation, phenomenal game plan, phenomenal adjustments in game play calling. All right. This week, how do you get to 2nd and goal and Rodriguez is at 8 yards per carry and he doesn't touch the ball again until and only touches it one more time in the first half. Part of that, again, they didn't have the ball but 3 times in the first half. I understand that. So how was it that there was a free rusher many times on Sunday? I don't know. Maybe it wasn't him. Maybe it was the quarterback. Maybe the quarterback was supposed to adjust the protection. Maybe Biotish was. I'm not sure. But Kingsbury's definitely, a target for many in the fan base right now. But for me, let me just say on Peters and Quinn, and I'll get to Kingsbury in a moment. For Peters and Quinn, last year bought them, for me, no less than through the end of 2026 before any seat gets warm. I mean, a year ago, we were sitting here in the midst of, we didn't know it at the time. We knew it was potentially going to be the first time they had won 11 or more games in a season since 91. We certainly didn't anticipate an NFC championship run, although we had already become believers in, hey, with him, with 5, anything's possible. I mean, he's that difficult to defend. He is that great, a year ago. But I still don't think, we thought it was going to be win at Tampa, win at Detroit, and then play Philly in an NFC title game. But I think what happened last year, it bought those guys time. I mean, a lot of time. It was so historic. It was so resurrectional. And yeah, so that bought him a lot of time. I think it bought him more than 2026, but at least through the end of 2026. I mean, if we said at the end of last year, what did it buy them? I think in the moment, recency bias, it bought them as long as they want. It's the greatest season we've had in many of our lifetimes, but for people my age or a little bit younger or a little bit older, it's the first time in 33 years, 34 years we've had anything like this. And it was great. And it was fun. Much better than this right now. However, to me, there's no warm seats, and I'm not even going to consider it until the end of next year. However, there's one scenario in which it would be, in my opinion, and I have a feeling many of you don't share this opinion, but that's fine. And by the way, phone lines are open, 301-230-0980, if you want to weigh in on whether or not you think Adam Peters, Dan Quinn, if their seats are warm, very warm, hot, however you want to describe it. For me, they're not at all right now as we sit here on December 10th. But a month from now, if the last 4 games look like what we just saw on Sunday, it certainly would be justifiable to, if you were the owner, to say, did you lose the team? Did we really lose something here? How is it that we just maybe had historical losses by an NFL team in one season? See, the league is designed for parity, designed to prevent a team getting blown out over and over again. There are examples of it, not many though. Like what Washington's on pace to do is going to make them one of the worst teams in terms of their loss. If they go 3-14, we're going to add it up. And it's going to be like, oh, my God, they lost. It's 5 right now. What if it's 7 or 8 games by 21 or more? Because if that happens down the stretch, I mean, Washington right now has the second worst point differential in the NFC. Only the Saints have a worse point differential. It's minus 92. And they've got 5 games of 21 or more losses. I don't think all 5 are the same. I think the Cowboys and Chiefs 3 touchdown losses were better in terms of effort and the competitiveness in general of the game than Seattle, Detroit, and Minnesota, the other 3. Minnesota's the worst. I've made my point on that because Minnesota came in as a bad football team on offense, one of the worst in the league, with a young quarterback playing about as badly as any young quarterback drafted in the first round has ever played early in his career. That one was the worst. Right now, for me, Peters, I am patient. Quinn, I still feel good about. Kingsbury, I feel good about Kingsbury. I'm bothered when I see some of the moments like on Sunday. I think sometimes he doesn't feel it in game. But I know that he is more than competent. And by the way, if he were to be let go, he'd be snapped up immediately. As a head coach in college, coordinator in the NFL, maybe a head coach in the NFL, who knows? But I will say about Kingsbury, as much as I do like him, if he ended up taking another gig and they got somebody to come in that was more of a Shanahan style offensive coordinator, I'd be excited about that. Because I think that that's still my favorite way of watching NFL football, and I think Jaden's a perfect fit for that system. I think he's perfect for a lot of systems, but I think he'd be great taking a lot of snaps under center with, more of a zone feel, bootleg, play action, etc. So seats not warm for Peters, Quinn, Kingsbury. However, for me, the one scenario in which a month from now I might say, you know what? Those seats are definitely warm starting in 2026, the beginning of the year, is if they essentially, crap out the rest of the way like they did against Minnesota. I'm not expecting that. It's the NFL. It's weird. Things happen. I think they're going to win another game or 2. I do. I don't know why I feel that way. Certainly nothing about Sunday would indicate that they're ready to beat a team like the Eagles or the Cowboys. But maybe the Giants. But the NFL changes so much week to week. And I still want to believe what I saw against Denver. I still want to believe what I've heard about the building and about the people in it, that this isn't 2023, this isn't 2019, that everybody's still in it, that they were disappointed and shocked at the way it went Sunday. And I think they'll fight over these final 4, and I think we'll see a win or 2. I do. And then, to me, their seats are not warm going into 2026. And then we can talk about what it looks like at the end of 2026, because let's just say they win another game or two and they're 4-13 or 5-12. Well, another 4-13 or 5-12 in 2026, even if the context is injuries, at that point, I don't know if the business will be able to handle bringing the whole crew back for 27. It's no way to run a football operation, but at $6 billion and all the investments they have, and not necessarily getting the unbelievable, overwhelming return of everybody after 2024. You put, 5 and 12s back to back, the business is going to be hurting. And they're going to be looking to make changes. And I would feel the same way. And I'm patient now because I understand the context of this year. Most of what has happened is out of their control. With one exception to me, game-wise, and that was Sunday in Minnesota. That was not an injury excuse game. And if you get more of those down the stretch, I may change my mind a month from now and say, you know what? This season better start off quickly in 2026. Better not start off 1-5 before their bye week. I have no idea when their bye week will be. I'll tell you that in May or April. 301-230-0980. Phone lines are open. Do you think seats should be warm or even hot right now? If not, what would create a situation where you would feel differently? I just gave you my situation, and that is these Final Four going the way of the Minnesota game on Sunday. We've got a guest at 11 to talk some NFL, and maybe a little bit later on in the show, someone to talk about the Notre Dame athletic director, who I think has had a terrible week. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com.
All right, it is Wednesday, everybody, and we start off with some NFL. The Commanders, they place tight end Zach Ertz on injured reserve, ending his season. They signed Chase Edmonds off of the practice squad. To baseball we go. The Chicago White Sox have won the MLB draft lottery. They'll be selecting first in 2026. Meanwhile, the Washington Nationals hold the 11th overall pick. Speaking of the Nationals, John Morosi is reporting that the Nats and the Orioles have been in communication about Mackenzie Gore. While there has been no indication that a deal is close, it could potentially mark the first trade between the franchises since the Nats came to town in 2005. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type of the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1. You can catch Denton's office throughout all of football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us, and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
All right. Phone lines are open. 301-230-0980. 301-230-0980. How warm are the seats for Quinn, Peters, Kingsbury, if you want to go there? My position is this. I don't think they're warm at all. I think last year bought them no less than the 2026 season. So I am patient with Adam Peters. I believe that it's worthwhile to be patient with Dan Quinn. The Kingsbury situation for me is I like Cliff. I think he's creative. Clearly, what worked last year worked in a big way. It wasn't just Jaden, making Kingsbury look good. I know that some people, Paulie feels that way. Jaden made a lot of things right when they weren't right, but they had a pretty good scheme, and the hurry up and the tempo and everything was very, very it was a major contribution to the success they had. For me, though, these last 4 games are important. I don't want to see a team loss situation where, you get 3 more performances or 2 more even. I don't want to see 1 more performance like the one you had in Minnesota. That was troubling. It was alarming. It was different than any of the others, in my opinion. And there have been plenty to choose from. So at that point, I may readjust a month from now and say, well, at least the seats are warm heading into the season. But as of now, I can't see thinking about, a change at general manager or at head coach until the earliest, the end of next season. Skip, what's up? How are you? Go ahead. Hello, Skip.
Can you hear me?
I got you, Skip.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I have to agree with you on pretty much everything you said. I've been listening to the callers in the last week or so, couple of weeks, and I'm just like shaking my head. The people just forgetting last year in so many ways. Like, come on, guys, and ladies, in the case of Sabah, what are you thinking? Like, did you see last year? Like, did you see how good in all the areas that we're questioning now the team was? So, but I also agree with you. If we lose out, which, by the way, would be interesting as far as draft position, and, we could maybe trade back and get a lot of capital. So it wouldn't be the absolute worst thing in the world. But like you said, how we play the next 4 games is very important. Like, if we play like we did against Denver, okay, I could maybe bear losing, 3 out of the next 4 or whatever. But I agree with you. I'd rather win a couple games, look good doing it, have Jaden play and look good so we go into next year with confidence, and then I think everything is fine. In fact, a 5-12 record would be kind of like, okay, now we're 500, let's start all over again. But I don't think that people, going crazy about, the coach and the general manager. I just couldn't believe people talking about the general manager. That's not going to happen. I mean, he's made a couple of bad calls as far as trades, but, a general manager also has a lot of hits too. I mean, he's, last year is a sparkling, highlight of his resume, what he did last year in assembling in 1 year.
I agree. I agree with
NFC
that.
Championship.
Yeah, and it's last year it was literally every social media mention of Adam Peters ended with just let him cook. Because everything that even all of the 1 year deals, these players played well. Bobby Wagner, Frankie Louvu, Armstrong at the end of the year. The guy that led our team in sacks last year, 10.5, Fowler Jr. A lot of good stuff last year. It's a very, very week to week, year to year kind of a situation. I mean, in terms of the different teams. You're going to end up with probably the significant majority of teams that were playoff teams last year, Skip, not make the playoffs this year, right? I mean, last year you had Baltimore, Baltimore, Kansas City from the AFC. Well, Denver and the Chargers. NFC, Washington won't be in it. Minnesota won't be in it. Detroit, I think, will be in it. Tampa's still fighting to be in it. You're going to have a lot of new teams in the postseason. Thanks, Skip, as always. Chris in Bowie, go ahead.
Hey, what's going on, Sheehan?
What's up, Chris?
So, hey, so to answer your question, I agree with you. I don't think that there's going to be any warmth to the seats of Kingsbury, Dan Quinn, Jaden, Adam Peters, or the ownership, right? Based on what Skip just said about, last season, I hope no one has forgotten that, getting all the way to Philly for the NFC Championship game. So that's the answer to your question. But however, I think a better way of saying it is, what do you think the fans' opinions and are going to be next year if next season were to go just as bad or even worse than this season? How do you think they're going to feel about JD, Kingsbury, Quinn, Peters, and at that point, the ownership? I don't know how you think of that, but that's my question for you.
How will ownership feel if this season ends poorly?
No. How do you think the fans will feel? Like, some fans think that the seats are hot for.
We've been taking those calls now for a month and a half about how a lot of people should get fired. So that's where it is right now. Here's what Josh Harris and Mitchell Rails and company shouldn't do, and that is listen to fans or listen to people like me. They know a lot more than all of us know. I mean, I've shared with you some of the conversations I've had. I'm sure you've heard them from people like Keim also, just about how inside that building, they have a real good handle on why they are 3-10. And it is injuries, number one. You're not going to hear them publicly state that. But that's number one. Now, what would they have been healthy? That's another question, because I think it's an interesting debate. If they had been a relatively healthy team, would they be 7-6 or 8-5 right now? I don't think so. I think that defense was headed towards bad. I think 7-6, 6-7, something like that, maybe still alive mathematically. But it was going to be a rough year, I think, because they have a major problem on defense.
I think the defense is awful, but the injuries also, though, is a big part of that as well.
Well, no, they know that, but there are some people that like to flex and say, yeah, you can't keep using that as an excuse. Of course you can. It's the absolute reason. It's the reason Kansas City is faltering right now, and other teams are faltering. But Sunday's game against Minnesota, injuries don't explain that one. When you lose to a team that's just as bad as you are, and much worse on offense, 31-0. That's where I'm like leaving some leeway for I can see myself feeling differently than I feel right now a month from now if there are another two games like the one on Sunday. Then you got to start questioning what's going on, because they're getting the least out of the least. I want to see them get more out of less. And we haven't seen that, not on defense for sure. I want to see them get more out of less. I want to see them in games. I want to see them have a chance to win the majority of these, three of the four anyway. Thanks, Chris.
I think on offense we missed Diami and Zacchaeus and guys like that as well on the offensive side as well.
Yeah, well, we missed Terry and Jaden a lot.
Yeah,
because they barely played this year. So we've missed the two best players on offense. Haven't played half the games. So that's what they've missed the most. But you're right. I think, they probably – I think they thought Zacchaeus was coming back. I don't know about Diami. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. If you're on hold, stay there. We'll try to take a few more calls on this question of how warm should the seats be for Peters and Quinn. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the Team980.com. JP Acosta from CBSSports.com is going to join us on the show. Real quickly before we get back to the calls about seats being warm. This from Stuart. Stuart writes, last caller spot on. This year was doomed when they let guys like Diami and Zacchaeus go. Even B-Rob is missed sorely. Hey, guys, Stuart, maybe there's a kernel of truth in not having those guys. But aren't you missing the forest for the trees on this one as far as the offense goes? De'Ami Brown, Zacchaeus, Brian Robinson Jr., this year was doomed because they didn't have their starting quarterback, starting wide receiver, and starting running back, basically for less than half the season so far. That's a little bit more significant than, all due respect to De'Ami and Zacchaeus. Maybe there's some truth in that they missed those guys, and maybe it wouldn't have been as bad had they been here in the absence of Terry, as an example, and Noah Brown and Luke McCaffrey and everybody else that got hurt, because maybe we wouldn't have had Robbie Chosen and Tay Martin and who am I forgetting of all the guys that came in? Losing track of who was here. Chris Moore. But no. It's not those guys. It's your QB1, RB1, wide receiver 1, pass rusher 1, pass rusher 2, corner 1. That's the reason. It's not because of De'Ami and Zacchaeus. And by the way, remember, when you say they let guys like that go, I guess you could describe it that way. I don't want to argue that point. But they had a choice in the matter, is what I would say. They were unrestricted free agents. Let's go to Jay in Suitland. Jay, how warm are the seats of the, people in question here? Adam Peters, Dan Quinn, and even Cliff Kingsbury. Go ahead.
Hey, what's up, Kevin, man? Love your show. Look,
Thanks.
First of all, I don't want to turn into the New York Jets where we fire our coaches every single year. But hear me out on this, and this is why I wouldn't be
Or
mad
the Redskins have passed.
Correct. So hear me out why I wouldn't be mad if Josh just blows everyone out this year. It's because, look, we're already going to have a new defense, right? So we're going to have a new defensive coordinator, someone that's going to that we're going to bring in. And we don't know if that's going to work because we don't have the personnel on defense yet. It's going to take a season or two for our defense. So our defense may go from 31 and let's say it goes to 20, right? We're still not good on defense. And here's one thing. We have 30 games of Cliff. So we know that Cliff, and it might be Jaden too, but if you load up the line of scrimmage and you rush, his offense doesn't work that well.
Really?
So my fear is
of the 30-plus games, it's worked pretty well in about 25 of them, 24 of them.
Let's
stick with
Seattle,
actual.
Dallas,
what?
Seattle, Dallas.
Yeah. Okay, but again. Okay, backup
Minnesota.
quarterbacks, no receivers, the whole thing. I mean, we had a whole season of seeing them handle everything. No blitz, pressure, no pressure. I mean, they just riddled everybody last year, including some of the best defensive teams in the league.
Okay, so we can agree to this.
By the way, I'm not hard and fast on if Kingsbury went somewhere else, not being devastated. Okay, I want to make that clear. I like Cliff. I think it'll work with Cliff. It's already worked with Cliff. But I like another style of offense more. But go ahead, finish.
Okay. Well, here's my point. So again, and similar to what the previous caller said, if we come out next year and we go 1-5. And now the seat is so hot that Josh has to blow everyone out. We're looking at another 4 in 13 season and another wasted jaded year. So I wouldn't be mad if Josh blows everyone out. We start over new, right? We bring in some new coaching staff, new offense and defense. And if we do suck next year, okay, it is us gelling. We do have that excuse that, okay, we have a new coaching staff and let's grow. We can't afford to start off another season slow and then blow our coaches out in the middle of the season. So I wouldn't be mad if he clears house now because we're getting a new offense. Everyone thinks we need a new we're getting a new defense. Everyone thinks we need a new offense. So, hey, let's start over. I wouldn't be mad is what I'm saying.
So I totally disagree with you, but you're entitled to your opinion. But I would just add one piece to the blowing it all up after this year following last year. It's not a good look. For your organization. No. It's not a good look for Josh Harris, an organization that in one season changed the view from around the league about what Washington had become. They had gone from laughing stock, bottom of the barrel, one of the worst, you could argue the worst professional sports franchise in North America, to one of the most respected overnight. And so if you boom everybody after an injury-riddled season, which the league understands, agents understand, other owners, players, etc., you boom all those people after what they did last year because of one season where everything went wrong from an injury standpoint, you risk changing the view of a place that you just turned around almost instantaneously with the hiring of Adam Peters and Dan Quinn culturally. So that would be, to me, not worth it. I'd be patient just based on that. Now, if they tanked the rest of the year and they lost the team and, like, you know, there's context that I guess could have me saying the seat should be hot and they should be fired at the end of the year, but I doubt it. For me, the worst case would be if it ends like it happened in Minnesota, then next year they're on the clock. Like, they better end up having a really good season. It better look a lot different than the way the last third of this season looked. Thanks. Appreciate it, Jay. Let's go to Jason. Jason, thanks for holding. Go ahead.
Hey, Kev. Thanks for you, Max, for taking my call. I don't think there should be any hot seat at all, but that does not mean that there shouldn't be some really good conversations behind the scenes. And that's what I'm more interested in.
What conversations?
Three main areas. The fact that they weren't self-aware enough that they went into this season with this defensive staff and defensive personnel, I think is a problem. You're right. Injuries have been a problem, but this staff, combination of staff and personnel, just wasn't getting it done. We're not a good defensive team. And like the previous caller said, that's probably going to be the case for a year or two. There's not going to be an easy fix to this in one season. The second thing is I wonder, like, if Peters, Quinn, and Cliff are all on the same page. I like that we improved our offensive line. I think our offensive line was serviceable last year. It's been better this year. You know, Peters enforced it, and I think that's good. But I don't understand us not running the ball when it's effective, even in some of these tight games. And Cliff he doesn't turn his back on the run, but he kind of drifts away. I don't get it. And I almost feel like he wants to win by tricking and deceiving people rather than, like, hammering the hell out of somebody. I'd rather them hammer the hell out of somebody. But, you know, they need to have a conversation about that.
I think every game's different. And my personal view is I don't care how you move the football and score points. Just move the football and score points. And it can happen in a lot of different ways. But there's no doubt that this year, I do feel like that he hasn't felt it in moments when they, like Sunday, you know, Washington still remains the number 4 rush offense in the NFL. Now, Mariota's a big part of that right now. You know, I'm just looking at their rushing numbers. Obviously, Jaden's not going to lead the team in rushing this year. Krosky Merritt is the leading rusher, 550 yards. Rodriguez, 372 yards. And then Jaden and Mariota are basically right at the same number. But you know, they do use the quarterback as part of the game, is what I was going to say. You know, a lot of it scrambles, but they also use the quarterback in the run game. He does. And I think, like, if he were to hear this conversation, which he doesn't and should never respond to it, but if he were, he would say, you know, we are the number 4 rush offense in the NFL, if you were wondering.
Well, you and I both could point at examples like when they should have ran like on the goal line down there, but that doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, I agree.
The third thing I think is a good question to ask is this staff the best staff to further develop Jaden? And Kevin, I'm serious about this. I believe in Jaden. Yeah. You turned me on to him. I've watched all of his college games. He's a great quarterback. But the last couple of times he's been on the field, we've finally seen some bad film on him. He's not pulling the trigger and making decisions like he was before. He's turned down things that are open. So I don't know if it's a trust or a confidence thing, but is this staff the right staff to develop? Now, I'm not saying they're not. I'm just saying it's something that needs to be talked about. You know, the superpower of this team last year was our efficiency and holding the ball, keeping long drives going, and we could score every time we got the ball. Even with that bad defense, this year the defense is as bad or worse, and then we lost that efficiency, and that's why we are where we are.
Yeah,
But
agreed.
you know,
Good points. I would say this about the coaching staff. Thanks for the call, as always. I think, they're losing Tavita Pritchard. There is a lot of belief in David Blau as a future, not only coordinator, but as potentially a future head coach. You have guys like Brian Johnson and Anthony Lynn on the offensive staff. I think that they feel pretty strong and pretty confident in the staff. And I know, and I think we've all heard this, that Jaden and Cliff's relationship is very close. So again, I can't come to a conclusion, as frustrated as I was on Sunday and a couple of other times this year with the actual game itself and the called game by Cliff. I can't punt on Cliff yet. If he ended up taking another gig and they were like, go ahead, and we ended up getting, a Shanahan disciple, somebody from Sean's staff, somebody from Kyle's staff to come in to be the new offensive coordinator, I would be excited about that. I'm not going to lie to you, but I wouldn't be pushing Cliff out the door, not after this season and what he's had to work with. Jason and Laurel. Jason, go ahead. I'm sorry, Drew and Glen Burnie. Drew, go ahead.
Hey, Kevin. Thanks for taking my call.
Philip Rivers.
I think a big issue here is that we are getting guys with injury histories and whose bodies are made of glass. We need to take a holistic view at the type of guys we are bringing in. We want men with chiseled jaws with bodies made of steel. We want men who played 15 seasons in the NFL without ever missing a game, as well as 4 years in college without ever missing a game.
Right.
And now that we understand that Mr. Rivers is available and he was not signed, I want everyone gone. This team has no direction. Jaden Daniels, flash in the pan. Yeah, he might be okay next year. Let him go. Done. It's over.
What do you think? I've not talked about it yet. Did we talk about it at the end of the show yesterday, Max? Maybe briefly?
Very briefly we touched on it.
But he's now been signed to the practice squad. Drew is a longtime caller and knows how much I loved Philip Rivers, and every single one of Drew's calls essentially get into it, tongue placed firmly in cheek, landing on Philip Rivers somehow, some way. I can't believe he's going to play. I think he's going to play Sunday in Seattle. You don't sign Philip Rivers at 44 years old, bringing him out of retirement to not play, to be on the practice squad. He's going to play Sunday, don't you think, Drew?
The Colts are now the Super Bowl favorite. I would bet my 401k on it. This is the greatest move in the history of football, and I might be a Colts fan for the foreseeable future.
I'm going to be rooting for him, and I know that your sarcasm is seeping through that phone, but I'm going to be rooting for him. You know what's interesting? Thanks for the call, as always, Drew. Remember what everybody said. Now, Flacco's been in the league. He hasn't been out of the league for 5 years. But when Cincinnati traded for Flacco and Cleveland traded him in the division, people were laughing at it, saying, oh, my God, he's going to get killed. He can't move. He's a statue. That offensive line stinks. And he lit up almost everybody that they faced. Had great receivers. In Indy, they've got a good team. They've got a good team around Philip Rivers. I have no idea what it'll look like. I would assume not good at 44, having not played in 5 years. Let's go to Aveen. Aveen, go ahead.
Hey, Kevin. You've talked about it being reactionary and impulsive and not a bad look if, we were to let Dan Quinn go after this season. But to me, I don't think it's reactionary impulsive when it's 2 full seasons of an embarrassing defense with no signs of improvement. I mean, that kind of record warrants something drastic happening on that side of the ball. And, I can go through some of the organizations again. I mean, the Eagles in 2023 with Nick Sirianni, they were super close to firing him after their team collapsed a year after the Super Bowl. And what they did is they sat down with him, they had a long meeting, and they pretty much emasculated him. They fired both his coordinators, and they said, we're going to pick your coordinators and your coaching staff, and you're going to play nice. So that's what they did with him. And then you just go down the list, like the 49ers fired their defensive coordinator after making the Super Bowl. The Packers fired their defensive coordinator after making the playoffs.
Yeah, but they've already fired their defensive – well, they haven't fired him, but they're going to move on from him. You're talking about firing Dan Quinn.
Yeah,
he's the head coach.
The head of the defense. I mean, a lot of these defenses you look at, who are some of the worst bottom 10 defenses, they're all offensive head coaches. And you can even look at the Patriots. The Patriots fired Flores after 1 year. They brought in Vrabel, and he's kind of changed their defense and their culture with the defense. So there is some precedent of good organizations doing this. And I'll just ask you this, because
I don't know if there. Give me the precedent a year after, because there's a lot that's unique about this particular situation, right? Including, by the way, the business around the organization and the fact that it was reignited and resuscitated from basically dead last year. Give me, though, just the football example of a coach going 12-5 in his first season as a head coach, winning 2 road playoff games to essentially go 14-6 overall, and getting fired at the end of the next season. I'm not saying it hasn't happened, but just remind me of how many of those there are.
There aren't many at all. It's a rare thing. That's like the closest thing I could come up with Sirianni a year after the Super Bowl making.
So sit down with Quinn. By the way, I would assume that there's been some conversations about the defense already, and they're going to go out and hire, hopefully, a really good defensive coordinator. You give him that third year. It's not a good look. People aren't going to say, well, he's a defensive head coach and his defense stunk for 2 years. They know what Dan Quinn is. Dan Quinn's, superpower, as he would say, is his leadership ability. It's the culture that he's developed everywhere he's been. Now, the other part of it is, especially when he's been the lead defensive guy, is he's been an outstanding defensive coordinator and defensive head coach. But he hired a coordinator, and he said, this is the difference with round 2 as a head coach, is I'm going to be more of the CEO coach. I learned that when I was out. There are several of those quotes from him when he got hired, that this was not going to be as hands-on as it was in Atlanta. So I hear what you're saying, and yes, the defense is the worst part of this football team over the 33 games, right? 30 for 20 last year, 13 this year, of the 33 games. But I think that the first step before you shoot the head coach, who's a defensive head coach, is to hire a more experienced rather than a less experienced defensive coordinator, and maybe one that brings in a different scheme.
Okay, but the only example I can think of, of a coach on his side of the ball, the front office telling him he needs to fire his defensive coordinator or offensive coordinator and get their own coaches, is the Eagles in 2023. But
Nick Sirianni had very little head coaching experience, though.
But if you bring in a new defensive coordinator, they're going to want to bring in their own coaches. This isn't no longer a Dan Quinn controlled thing. You can't just bring one new defensive coordinator in and expect the whole defense to change with Dan Quinn's principles and his coaching staff's principles.
Well,
they're going to want their own coaches.
Well, maybe I'm suggesting that maybe you move away from Dan Quinn's style of defense.
Which will acquire a whole new
why can't he stay as the head coach, but bring in a coordinator that has different ideas and a different system? And you know this, Savine, and I know this too. Defense is weird. It's the variance year to year. Like my last caller, 2 callers, there's no chance they're going to be good on defense for two years. There's no way to fix this in one season. You would think that right now based on what we're watching, but with their salary cap space and with the opportunity maybe to bring in a guy that will get less out of more, it could be improved significantly next year.
Okay, so we have strong evidence. 2 back-to-back seasons with no variance, with being bottom of the league, and they had a lot of cap space last year. So I'll just ask you this, guy.
Yeah, but the cap space was used on guys that haven't been able to play. They got injured. Let's call it what it is. I mean, Dietrich Wise, Will Harris, Dorrance Armstrong, et cetera. Some of their best players defensively haven't played enough. By the way, you know how I feel. I don't think it would have changed things a lot. I still think it would have been a bad defense. But there's at least the point that, Adam Peters and Dan Quinn would make is, well, we did, plan and bring in some players and keep a couple of players that we thought would be significant in helping us improve from last year, but they didn't get to play this year. I got to move on. Sorry. I got to move. I'm up against a break, and we got a guest coming on next. Those of you that I missed, apologies. JP Acosta to talk some NFL with us next on the Kevin Sheehan Show on the Team 980 and theteam980.com. We'll get into some NFL buy and sell a little bit later on in the show. And I do want to get to the college football, the Notre Dame situation, which we haven't had a chance to do this week in depth. Phillip Rivers is back in Indy. He's got to play, right? We'll ask JP Acosta that, who joins us right now. JP writes for CBS Sports. You can follow him on X at Acosta32_JP. I would assume, JP, that the Colts signed Phillip Rivers to the practice squad with the intention of playing him and playing him quickly as their playoff hopes are starting to deteriorate. Right? I mean, he's not going to come out of retirement not to play.
I think so. And again, it's sort of just how snake bitten the Colts have been at the quarterback spot. Of course, Daniel Jones goes down with the Achilles injury. Anthony Richardson's already on IR with the fractured orbital. And then the news came out a couple of days after the game that Riley Leonard's dealing with a knee injury that potentially has him week to week. So you're looking, if you're the Colts, like, do you want to really kick the tires on Sam Ehlinger in the midst of a playoff run? Do you really want to go and try and sign a guy like Desmond Ridder or something like that? Or do you want to actually go get a guy that actually has some experience in this offensive system, albeit he is 44 years old? So I think signing Phillip Rivers, although he is on the practice squad, I think he is going to play. I think he might play Sunday. I think he might start Sunday. But this would truly, if he does start, is going to be one of the most incredible things we've seen in the NFL.
Insane. I mean, I'm old enough to remember Steve DeBerg coming out of retirement as a backup, and he did have to play a game or two at 44 years old, but this dude hasn't played in 5 years. Like, I tried to compare it, JP, to how people laughed out loud when the Browns traded Flacco to Cincinnati, and then Flacco decided to basically light everybody up for 4 straight weeks. They just couldn't stop anybody. But Flacco's been playing. He's been in the league. But, you know, their styles are similar, right? They can't move, but they are gunslingers, and they're fearless, and they're smart. What are the chances it actually doesn't look terrible?
I mean, whenever it's Phillip Rivers, I'm never going to count him out. He has been an ultimate competitor his entire NFL career. He's been a guy that even as the arm strength went away, he knew how to attack defenses with accuracy, with leverage points, and he knew how to attack every NFL defense that he has seen. However, I still think the odds of this working out are kind of low, because even when he retired 5 years ago, he retired with an arm that wasn't necessarily that strong. How strong is the arm now 5 years later, and after you came back from coaching high school football? If that's not going to translate, especially against the Seahawks, the Texans, and the Jaguars, 3 of the final 4 teams that the Colts have to face this season, I don't know how well this is actually going to work.
You know, Flacco's first game was against the Packers, and everybody said, oh, my God, let him come back against somebody else. And same situation, Rivers playing at Seattle. I mean, it's not the best. You know, real quickly, my listeners know I was a big and was always a big Phillip Rivers fan. I thought like he was playing chess and everybody else was playing checkers, not to mention his leadership ability, the whole thing. The throwing style was always odd, but it was incredibly effective. He actually played pretty well in that final season, 2020, with the Colts, and almost engineered an upset in the playoffs against the Bills on the road. At the end of that game. Just out of curiosity, as an NFL writer, I've always felt like he is going to be in the Hall of Fame, not first ballot, maybe not second ballot, but he will eventually get there. Do you agree or disagree?
I definitely think he's a Hall of Famer. It's just for being he's the Briggs for the Chargers. He is the known consistent factor. He always played really well in spite of how the Chargers were sort of snake bitten. We all remember him tearing his ACL in the playoff and him still continuing to play in that game. That toughness, the grittiness, the ability to win despite the arm strength sort of going later, I think he's going to be a Hall of Famer. I don't know if he's going to be first ballot. I don't think he's going to be first ballot. But when we look at who's in the Hall of Fame and the quarterbacks that are in the Hall of Fame, I think you got to have Phillip Rivers in there. You can't tell the story of post 2000s NFL football without telling the story of Phillip Rivers and the Chargers.
All right. By the way, just so everybody knows, if Rivers gets called up off the practice squad, he immediately becomes an unretired player and will have to wait another 5 years for eligibility for the Hall of Fame. He's a semifinalist in his first year of eligibility right now. We're talking to JP Acosta from CBS Sports. So you wrote a few weeks ago about the struggles of JJ McCarthy and how Minnesota can fix him. We just saw, and, Washington right now, I think it's even worse than Cincinnati. It's probably the worst defense in the NFL as it exists. They just made J.J. McCarthy look like Phillip Rivers. So going back a couple of weeks when you wrote this story, how concerned are people in Minnesota about J.J. McCarthy's future?
Well, if it's a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being not concerned at all and 10 being things are falling apart, we got to get out of here quickly, I think the concern level in Minnesota is at about a 500. I think the thing with McCarthy is it's not just that he's been poor or it's been poor play. He has been the worst quarterback in football for a large majority of his rookie season. And he's also, on top of that, missed games due to injury. So not only do you have a guy that can't stay healthy, you have a guy that, when healthy, hasn't exactly been the guy that you hoped. And I think the biggest thing for McCarthy, especially coming out of Michigan, was that he needed time, he needed practice, he needed to sit and practice the footwork and the mechanics of throwing the football before he reached a point where he was NFL ready. And he missed that first part with the mechanics and the footwork because of the injury in the beginning of his career. So now you get to this point where the mechanics, the footwork are still out of whack. And I think that's the biggest issue. He's playing too fast. It looks like the game is too fast for him. So you just wonder, with a team like Minnesota, with the the skill position groups that they have, with Justin Jefferson still in the prime of his career, do you want to use that you want to use Justin Jefferson's prime with a quarterback that doesn't necessarily have the best mechanics and is always going to sail a lot of these passes? The accuracy has dipped a lot. So it's not looking great right now in Minnesota.
I had somebody on from Minnesota last week who suggested that Kevin O'Connell, the so-called QB whisperer, and he's good, he's very good. He was here too, in Washington. That maybe he's more of a whisperer with a veteran quarterback more so than a rookie quarterback. We'll see. Or it could be just this rookie quarterback. He actually had Dwayne Haskins. He was the OC for Haskins' rookie season in 2019, but they had a veteran on the team, Case Keenum. They also had Colt McCoy on the team as well. We're talking to JP Acosta from CBS Sports. So let's talk about the league right now. It's nuts. I mean, the teams that are at the top of the standings, the teams that are the highest seeded teams in the league. I mean, we may have Carolina, Chicago, Denver, and New England all making postseason appearances. Sort it out for me. Let's start in the AFC. Who do you expect to be standing at the end of this in late January?
It's really tough in the AFC because anybody can get got. And the logical fan in me wants to say the Bills because they have the quarterback that I trust the most when it comes to a single game scenario. But if the Texans get into the playoffs with the defense playing at the highest level of anybody in the sport, and with the offense still figuring things out, and the fact that CJ Stroud's playing a lot better, you have Nico Collins healthy, you have your contributions from your rookies like Woody Marks and Jaden Higgins, with the way that team is coming together at the right time, I sort of feel like the Texans can make a run at this thing in the AFC with the defense playing at such a high level. They have guys at every single level of the defense that are playing at a Pro Bowl caliber. They have the great defensive line. They have a secondary where if they want to play man coverage, they can lock anybody up in man coverage. And I just think they're getting enough from the offense. If you can get to 17 points, 20 points with this offense, the defense should be able to help you out. So I sort of think the Texans can make a run at this thing if they make the playoffs.
I'm totally with you on this. And Max and I have been talking about Houston for a while now. I 100% think that they could represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. I think without question, Myles Garrett is, pound for pound, maybe not only the best defensive player in the game, but maybe the best football player in the game. But do you think Will Anderson Jr. is number 2 behind him as a defensive player in the league?
I don't know if he's number 2 because I think Micah Parsons has he's more forceful and just sort of game-wrecking as a pass rusher. But overall, I think those are the only 2 guys that I would take over Will Anderson Jr. right now. He is such a strong player against the run and against the pass.
Yeah.
I think his ability to win with power and win with technique is so important for that defense. And then once you see them sort of tee off, he is 3rd in the NFL in pressures right now. He gets a lot of run stops, and he is the leader for that Texans defense. He is their emotional leader. And it's crazy that, they got from that draft, Will Anderson and C.J. Stroud, 2 of their core franchise players who ended up, with Will Anderson Jr. being probably the 3rd best defensive end in all of football. So I think, I would say it goes Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons, and then right now, Will Anderson Jr.
Is there any chance Joe Mixon comes back for them?
I don't think so. It's been really weird with Joe.
Yeah, that's a weird situation. Explain it, because we're not following it as closely as maybe some of the NFL guys like you are.
So he initially was on the non-football injury list. I think there was an injury that happened in the off season that kept him out, and then it's sort of just continued to the point where now he's on IR, and in November 20th, Ian Rappaport said Joe Mixon's not expected to play this season because of a foot injury he had in the offseason. And Joe Mixon said, no, that's not exactly true. But still, I don't think he's going to play this season.
Okay.
I think given the timing of it all, I would be surprised if they took Joe Mixon off of injury reserve. I'd be surprised they took him and made him an active player. But, anything can happen in the NFL. We just saw the Colts sign a 44-year-old quarterback to go play for them. So
we did.
We'll see what happens.
Who do you trust more, New England or Denver?
Oh, man. It's tough because I think I trust Denver's defense more than New England's defense. But I sort of trust New England's quarterback more than Denver's quarterback. But I still think the offenses are about evened out to the point where I'm going to say Denver because the defense is one of the best defenses in the NFL. And New England has good defense in itself, but they don't have Milton Williams, their best defensive player. So I think I trust Denver more, but I would not be surprised if Drake May leads this team on a run because he has been that good this season.
New England plays Buffalo this weekend. They're actually a home dog. Denver has Green Bay in the late window. They're a home dog as well. The Broncos are against Green Bay. Pittsburgh with a huge win Sunday in Baltimore. Aaron Rodgers probably played the best game he's played all year. Do you think Pittsburgh wins the division, or does Baltimore come back and win it?
Every time I'm asked this question, I have a different answer. I think day by day, I sort of go back and forth between both teams. Today, I'll say I think the Steelers win the division, but I think it's because the Ravens have such an uphill battle. The Ravens have to play the Patriots and the Packers and the Bengals before their Week 18 game against the Steelers. And all those games, at least the Patriots and Bengals games, they're gettable, especially for a team as talented as the Ravens. But given the Ravens they're not that good up front this year on both sides of the line. And I think Pittsburgh getting the game at home in Pittsburgh in Week 18, I think that's just going to help them sort of eke out a win. I think Mike Tomlin has known how to win dirty, win gritty. They win these type of games. They win these types of divisions. So I'm going to say Pittsburgh, but I also really don't have a lot of faith in them overall.
All right, let's switch to the NFC. Give me the top 3 teams in order, because I think there are 3 that kind of stand out, but I want to hear your order of the top 3.
Ooh, okay. Rams are my number 1.
Yeah.
Then the Packers are my number 2, and then the Seahawks are number 3.
Yep. I think those are the 3 best teams. I don't know that Philadelphia right now. I mean, I don't know that you count Philly out. Maybe you don't count Detroit out. But to me, the 3 best overall teams in the NFC, and you could argue maybe the 3 best overall teams in the NFL are the Rams, Packers, and probably Seahawks.
I agree. And I think all those teams have balance and game changers on both sides of the ball. Obviously, the Rams have the best offense in the NFL this season. With the way they're able to run the ball, with the way that Matthew Stafford is playing, they casually dropped 45 on the Cardinals without even breaking a sweat. And then defensively, they have that pass rush. They can win with 4. And then defensive coordinator Chris Shula has done such a good job with that secondary that it helps tie the defense all together. And then for the Packers, they have the force multipliers. They have Micah Parsons, and they have Jordan Love. They have game changers on both sides of the ball. Whereas with Seattle, I think I trust their quarterback the least in Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
He's played a little bit reckless as of late, which scares me a little bit. But, man, that defense is incredible. They have guys at every level. They have depth at every level. It's going to be hard to beat them in a single-game scenario. And with the Eagles concerning all of this, like the Eagles part of this, I wish I trusted their offense as much as I trust their defense. That's the biggest thing with Philadelphia. I can't trust their offense at any point, despite how talented they are. But that defense is going to make a lot of games ugly.
Is there anybody other than Houston, although Houston's actually technically in right now, they'd win the tiebreaker with Indy for the last wild card, but is there anybody in either conference not in right now that you think if they were to get in could really, could win a game or two? And I'm really thinking about Detroit. Like Detroit. Yeah, that's true. Detroit, right. They're outside looking in. Yep.
Yeah, Detroit is really the only one that I think outside of the playoffs right now, given the way that offense has looked, and I think Dan Campbell's really coming to his own as a play caller, they just have so many weapons on that side of the ball. And I think their defense is just finding ways to get stops to the point where, if the Lions get into the playoffs, they can put 40 points on anybody, and you have to go score with them. So I think the Lions are the one team that are outside the playoff picture right now that I think can really, really make a run.
JP, thanks so much. Really appreciate the time.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
JP Acosta from CBS Sports. We'll do some NFL buy and sell when we come back. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com.
All right, happy Wednesday, everybody. We start off with the Commanders. They place Zach Ertz on the injured reserves and sign running back Chase Edmonds off of the practice squad. To baseball we go. The Chicago White Sox have won the MLB draft lottery. They'll be selecting first in 2026. Meanwhile, the Nationals will hold the 11th overall pick. Speaking of the Nationals, John Morosi is reporting that the Nats and the Orioles have been in communication about Mackenzie Gore. While there has been no indication that a deal is close, it could potentially mark the first trade between the franchises since the Nats came to town in 2005. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1. You can catch programs like Denton's Office and Take Command on our Team 980 YouTube page. And that's what's trending.
All right, NFL buy and sell time. What are you buying? What are you selling? 301-230-0980 if you want to weigh in. I'm going to kick it off, Max, with like we've been buying, both of us have been buying up Houston stock for a while now. We should probably sell it because we bought so low.
Sell some
but
of
I'm
it.
going to buy Houston to actually win the division. Right now, Jacksonville has a one-game lead. Jacksonville with games against the Jets, the Colts banged up, the Titans still left. They do play at Denver. With Houston still with games down the stretch against the Cardinals, Raiders. They've got to go to L.A. to play the Chargers. They finish with the Colts. I'm not only going to buy them to win the actual AFC South with a 12-5 record, but that's going to give them the 3 seed, which will set it up a little bit easier. They'll play a home game and then potentially 2 road games. Maybe we'll see, because Buffalo more likely than not is going to be in that position, and they could end up hosting the AFC Championship game against somebody like Buffalo, a wild card team. New England and Denver are going to probably be the top 2 seeds in the AFC, and they're going to have a chance to play at least, 2 home games more likely than not. Before in the 1 seed only get 2 games in total, but at home, I think you could see a Houston hosting Buffalo in an AFC title game, but Houston's got to get to that division winning position, and I think they will. I don't know that Houston's going to lose again this year in the regular season. They're that good right now. And it's the Cardinals, Raiders, then at Chargers, and then finish with the Colts. Houston to win the division and not lose another game this year to finish 12-5. That would put them, by the way, on a 9-game winning streak to end the season. What are you buying?
So my buy is also a sell. This team that I'm selling this team.
Your buy is also a sell.
My buy, yes, you'll see why. I was very early on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, as we all know. I brought it up at the beginning of the year. And so I am basically doing a 1-for-1 swap. All of my Bucs stock is being shifted over to the Carolina Panthers. Now, not as the 1 seed or anything like that. I think the Panthers are going to win the division and
Why
make the
didn't you
playoffs.
just buy the Carolina Panthers and keep it simple?
Because I am overcomplicating it, and I wanted to remind everybody that I was on the Bucs early. That's pretty much it.
Didn't you buy the Panthers last week or 2 weeks ago?
It was like 3 or 4 weeks ago, but yes,
I'm just knocking you for that, because I bought Houston a month, 6 weeks ago.
I want to buy more before they play each other twice before the end of the year, and Carolina takes the spot. So that's why I'm doing it again now.
Okay. Carolina as the NFC South winner. Those 2 Buccaneers games are big. The Bucs play tomorrow night, and you know who they're playing? They're playing whose team.
Oh, yes.
Atlanta. And Kirk in the 2 games against the Bucs last year threw for like 800 yards in 2 games. He had a 530-yard game on Thursday Night Football last year and just carved them up twice. So, and Tampa Bay's not playing well right now.
No.
And they lost to the Saints. By the way, let me buy something else here.
Uh-oh.
All right. I wasn't going to buy it, but I'm going to just buy it. I'm buying the Saints to knock off the Panthers on Sunday.
Ooh.
All right. I'm buying the Saints the rest of the year. Do you know that over the last 3 or 4 games, they're like number 2 defensively in the league?
I did
over
not.
I think it's the last 4 games.
I did not know that.
And do you know who's playing at a very high level right now?
I've said it. I think I said it last week.
Chase Young.
Oh, you're going a way different direction than I thought.
In 8 games, Chase Young has 5 sacks. He's got 20 tackles, 3 PBUs, pass breakups, 20 pressures. He's playing the best football of his career since his rookie year, when he won Defensive Rookie of the Year. And remember, after it didn't work out in San Francisco, the Saints signed him, and then in the offseason, they gave him a multi-year deal. They could get out of it if he wasn't right or if he wasn't hurt, but they've got him under contract next year. The New Orleans Saints are actually an excellent defensive football team right now. Really good defensively. And they play the Panthers. So the one more bye is, let me give you a lock for a smell test pick on Friday. New Orleans plus the points at home. and it's like 2.5, 3 right now against the Panthers. Chase Young's going to end up with multiple sacks on Bryce Young. Young sacks Young multiple times Sunday in the Superdome. My
that.
sell, I don't want to keep selling the Ravens, which I've been doing for a while now. I think that's getting old. So I'm going to sell a team that won on Monday night. I thought that the performance, by the way, by Justin Herbert, forget the stats. If you watch the game, that was one tough, hard-nosed performance. I mean, he was like 12 of 27 for 120-something yards, an interception. He got sacked 7 times in the game. He fumbled twice, lost one of them. But, man, he was tough. And when it mattered as a runner, a scrambler, and this was with a broken hand, playing with a cast on his left hand. But I'm selling the Chargers right now down the stretch. They play Kansas City this Sunday. By the way, they're a 4.5-point dog at Arrowhead. Then they play at Dallas. Then they have to play the Texans and Broncos to finish up the year. So I'm selling the Chargers as a playoff team.
Ooh,
that's a big sell.
That is a big sell.
They're 9-4 right now, and they could theoretically lose out to finish 9-8.
Oof.
They were lucky to survive on Monday night. I mean, Philadelphia was right there in position to end the game in overtime inside their 20 when Hurts threw his 4th interception of the game. I do. There's a lot about Harbaugh's team. I mean, they are tough. They got Hampton back too, but they're not better than the Texans or the Broncos or maybe even the Chiefs at Arrowhead, because this is it for the Chiefs. For the Chiefs to have any chance, they've got to win out, and it starts Sunday against the Chargers. And if they do win out to finish 10-7, what would be interesting is who would they catch? They might catch the Chargers, given their schedule. I'm selling the Chargers right now. What are you selling?
I'm selling the Broncos' chances to win a playoff game. Now, I've been shorting the Broncos and selling them all year, but I can't with Bo Nix anymore. It's the game manager stuff. Like, he's good at it and he does it well, but once you hit that playoff, like right now, the Broncos are the 1 seed, and they hold the tiebreaker over the Patriots because of since the Patriots lost early in the season to the Raiders. So that's why the Broncos are going to be the 1 seed if them and the Patriots end up tying. So if the Broncos get that bye and then come in kind of loafing around, or a team just comes in prepared to eat Bo Nix up, like I can't with the Broncos. I can't trust their quarterback, and I can't trust the team as a whole.
Yeah,
so,
like if Houston went to Denver and just say a divisional round game,
dominate.
I can't see Bo Nix surviving that.
Agreed. And that's my whole
but
thing.
Their defense could certainly cause problems for Stroud. It's interesting because I was thinking about, if Houston's got to go through Denver or New England, and maybe both of them to get to the Super Bowl, because obviously I am rooting for that. A month ago, now 5 weeks ago, put a meaningful wager on the Texans to win the AFC Championship at 30-1. I think that the matchup with Denver would be much more favorable defensively for them. New England's legit offensively. Legit. The quarterback's legit. The coordinator's legit. They've got a home run hitter in the backfield. So Denver's the team I'd feel better with Houston going on the road and beating. Foxborough in that offense, even against that defense, it'd be tougher. Man, there could be some really interesting January playoff matchups. I mean, matchups between teams nobody saw coming at the beginning of the year, and maybe even halfway into the year. I wanted to mention one other thing real quickly, because there's like a team that we keep leaving out from all these conversations, and not Chicago, because there's been plenty of talk about Chicago, but a team that's 9-4 right now that gets no love at all. And it's because of the division they're in.
Yep.
And the 2 teams ahead of them. The 49ers, nobody's talking about. I personally don't think the 49ers I don't think they're as good as the Rams or the Seahawks. I don't. And they still, by the way, play and they finish with Seattle. They played the Rams twice, and they got blown out by the Rams a few weeks ago in Santa Clara. They were in that game in Cleveland, I know what the final score was, but it wasn't easy to get to that. But man, they're kind of under the radar as a 9-4 team. All right, if you want to weigh in, give us a buy, give us a sell, team, player, anything. Buy and sell, NFL style. Phone lines open at 301-230-0980. NFL buy and sell, 301-230-0980. We've got an open line. You want to buy something, team, concept, player, division, a Super Bowl matchup, an upset this weekend, anything NFL related that you want to buy or you want to sell something you don't believe in. I'm buying Houston to not only make the playoffs, but to do it as the AFC South champion. I don't think they're going to lose again in the regular season. I think they're that good. They've got to obviously stay healthy. Stroud's got to stay healthy. I think he's played well. They're really missing a back, a Mixon. Woody Marks has been good. They got Nick Chubb, in there, and he's played pretty well. But Stroud's good. I think Stroud is more than good enough to win with. But that defense is hellacious, and it's the best in the NFL in terms of the way it's playing right now. And it travels. That's you have to have that in the postseason to win on the road. And they'll probably have to go on the road after their first game, maybe to New England or Denver or probably not Pittsburgh or Baltimore. The Pittsburgh-Baltimore division winner in the AFC North will be the 4 seed. They'll be the 4 seed. And you know what that means? More likely than not, a first-round playoff matchup against Buffalo. That's the way it'll work, because Buffalo very likely to be the 5 seed. It could be the Chargers. I don't think it will with their schedule. How about Buffalo going to Pittsburgh for a rematch of what we saw 2 weeks ago? That's not what Pittsburgh wants in the postseason. I think Buffalo's got a really good chance when they get in, no doubt, because they would be favored as the 5 seed on the road against Pittsburgh or Baltimore at this point. And then, then you're talking about, going to the 1 seed, a Buffalo-New England divisional round game, or a Buffalo at Denver divisional round game with, say, Houston hosting the other of the 2 teams. Going to be interesting, man, in the AFC for sure. I'm buying Houston and selling the Chargers. I think that they look banged up. They survived the other night, but they got to go to Kansas City, to Dallas. Then they face Houston at home before going to Denver. That's possible that Denver game will be meaningless for the Chargers. Possible. 301-230-0980. What are you buying? What are you selling? Let's start with our guy, Duntel. Duntel, go ahead.
Hey, Kevin. How's it going, buddy?
Good, man. How are you, Duntel?
All righty. I got a nice buy for you. I am buying the Colts and Phillip Rivers, man. And I'm buying them to win it all.
Really?
Wouldn't this be a nice fairy tale story, though, Kevin?
Oh yeah.
I mean, everybody's talking about the 44-year-old vet that ain't played in 5 years. But man, think of the running game he's got to protect him also, and he has receivers. But think of the running game he has to protect him.
No, they've got an excellent roster. They've got good receivers. I mean, they got Jonathan Taylor back there. It's a good football team. But, look what's happened with it. I mean, remember, Daniel Jones has been hurt for the last few weeks. He had a fibula, injury. Probably shouldn't have been playing. But, we haven't talked enough about the Daniel Jones situation because we didn't get to their game against Jacksonville yesterday, Max. But, Daniel Jones is not under contract. I mean, what a devastating injury at this time for his prospects of getting a big deal next year. Devastating. He had played so well, but recently has been hurt, and you've seen how it's impacted their performance. What else did you have, Duntel? Sorry.
I'm sorry, man. It was kind of crazy because I was sitting here thinking before this even happened, and my question to myself was, I wonder if Phillip Rivers is going to get in the Hall of Fame before Eli Manning, and now that's long gone now.
Yeah, look, he's a semifinalist. So is Eli, right, this year. So I think Eli's 2 Super Bowls gets him in before Rivers, but I think Rivers eventually gets in. But if he plays, the clock starts over. He's got to wait another 5 years. Clearly, he doesn't care about that. Right. He wants to play. Thanks, Duntel. Appreciate it. Let's go to Robert in Ocean City. Robert, what's up? Buy and sell, NFL style. Go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon, Kevin. First thing I like to do is buy Trevion Henderson, winning Offensive Rookie of the Year. He's taken over the New England backfield because of Stevenson's fumbling issues and being injured, and his impact has really vaulted into a more balanced offense and not having Drake May do it all. And he's taken over I know Abuka has overall stats throughout the year, but he's fallen off a cliff.
Tyler Warren, too.
Well.
Tyler Warren's up there.
Yeah. Yeah, also, and he'll be hurt because of Daniel Jones' injury later on the stretch. And I'm selling Cliff Kingsbury, staying with Washington because there's still some prominent college head coaching opportunities available for him. And maybe one of those colleges will be calling him up when the season's over and discuss a head coaching job for him. I'd like your opinion on that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think that if he gets like an offer to be a head coach, even if it's not the offer that he wants, remember, he's still being paid by the Cardinals, his salary. I think it's through the end of this year. And that's one of the reasons it made it easier for him to stay as a coordinator this year. But I think that's one of those situations where if the opportunity comes up, if you're Washington, do you say, best of luck. We wish you, the best of luck, and go out and try to replace him with somebody that maybe they believe more in terms of the system, more under center, more, Shanahan style, et cetera. I don't know. I don't have a really good feel for where Kingsbury ends up at the end of the season, but the betting odds would be he comes back here as the offensive coordinator. By the way, the offensive rookie of the year odds right now, Ted McMillan, the receiver in Carolina, is right now a heavy favorite at minus 150, basically on average. Jackson Dart is right behind him. And then it's Igbuka, Tyler Warren, and then Travion Henderson. But Travion Henderson's like 20 to 24 to 1, depending on where you're looking at it. So he's had a tremendous season, but it's probably not going to be an offensive rookie of the year season. I'm looking through some of just the player award odds right now. We haven't talked about these in a while, Max. Like, Matt Stafford is right now a pretty solid favorite over Drake May for MVP. That could, of course, change here down the stretch. You know who's moved way up the board in recent weeks in the MVP conversation and odds? Jordan Love. Jordan Love is now, I'm looking at a consensus of multiple sports books. Stafford is the favorite to win MVP, followed by Drake May, followed by Jordan Love. And then there's a drop-off to Josh Allen, Dak Prescott, etc. Smith Najigba is the clear-cut favorite to be Offensive Player of the Year. It's not even close. That's changed a lot over the last 4 or 5 weeks because it was Jonathan Taylor for much of the year. And then defensively, I just mentioned the rookie. Defensively, the kid in Cleveland, Carson Schwessinger, he's a massive favorite to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. And Myles Garrett is the biggest favorite of anybody in any of these player category for awards. He is literally like minus 1,400 to win Defensive Player of the Year. And it's not even close. What else did I have here I wanted to share? Oh, Comeback Player of the Year. Phillip Rivers is now the third pick behind Christian McCaffrey and Dak Prescott. Yeah, you forget that Dak was hurt last year, but Christian McCaffrey's the favorite to be Comeback Player of the Year. I don't see Chase Young on here because he played last year. That's right, because he actually played football last year. Anyway, all right. Some good calls. NFL buy and sell. That's it. I want to get to this Notre Dame situation. We'll do that next. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com. I do want to mention before we break about my friends at Foley Mechanical. If you've got HVAC system issues, my recommendation, and it's a strong one, is to give Foley Mechanical a shot. We had some HVAC systems issues in the house. My wife and I had Dan Foley, who owns Foley Mechanical, out to the house. Great guy, dealt with everything directly. He's impressive. He owns 100% of the company. This isn't a franchise. You're not getting people that, essentially are a part of the franchise or independent contractors working for somebody else. It's not a big private equity firm. He controls everything. He comes out, he takes care of it, and then he's got terrific people who are professional, skilled, and sharp. He controls the quality start to finish. Foley Mechanical is full service, heating and air conditioning, hot water and boilers, and they're the go-to for older homes with radiator heat, a real specialty in the market. The market they service, the DMV, DC, Maryland, and Virginia, they proudly install Amana HVAC equipment. If your system needs help, my recommendation is to let Foley Mechanical handle it. Call Foley Mechanical or go to FoleyMechanical.com and tell Dan Foley that Kevin Sheehan sent you. Dan Quinn's going to speak out in Ashburn. We'll share with you anything that he says that is significant. So over the weekend, I don't know how many of you are as into this as I am. I love college football. Sunday was incredibly dramatic. The unveiling of the 12-team playoff bracket, right before the 1:00 kicks in the NFL. And there was a lot of, drama because after the results on Saturday in the conference championship games, there was essentially what appeared to be 3 teams for 2 spots. The 3 teams were Alabama, Notre Dame, and Miami. Now, I think most people felt going in to Sunday that even though Alabama got absolutely run out of the building by Georgia in the SEC title game for their 3rd loss of the year, that Alabama would be safe because they had arguably the most impressive win of the season, which was a win during the regular season at Georgia in Athens. And their profile overall, when it comes to things like schedule strength and strength of record and power profile, was actually better than Miami and Notre Dame's. So they were ranked safely in the field, and it really came down to Notre Dame and Miami for 1 spot in the field. For those of you not familiar with how this works, you've got the 4 major conferences, and then you've got the rest of the conferences, the non-power 4 conferences, what are referred to as the G5. And the way it works is the top 5 highest ranked conference champions get automatic bids, and then the other 7 are determined in an at-large process, a subjective, somewhat subjective, somewhat quantitative process to identify the other 7 teams. And then they seed them 1 through 12 based on the rankings of the teams. It's not, nobody's guaranteed a bye as a conference champion. That was the case last year, not this year. So what happened this year, it was an odd circumstance, and I would bet that it would be an aberration moving forward. And in fact, it's the only year that it can happen for a number of reasons, which I may or may not get into in this spiel. But the 4 power conferences, it turns out that they weren't necessarily, one of them wasn't among the 5 highest ranked conference champions. Duke won the ACC championship. Virginia would have been in had they won the ACC title, but Duke won it, and as a 5-loss team, they weren't anywhere near ranked as high as, believe it or not, James Madison or Tulane. So Tulane got in as the American Conference winner, and JMU got in as the Sun Belt Conference champion winner, to go along with the SEC, Big Ten, and Big 12 winners. And in the case of those 3 teams, Georgia, Indiana, and then Texas Tech. So the ACC champ was left out. Real quickly, the ACC screwed everything up this year because their tiebreaker system was too involved and too lacking in common sense. They actually played their way out with their conference champion because Duke should have never been in the conference championship game to begin with. Through a convoluted tiebreaker with many teams tied for second behind Virginia, Duke emerged as the tiebreaker winner, but they shouldn't have. Most conferences have it that the highest ranked team in the college football playoff rankings wins the tiebreaker. And in that case, it would have been Miami. Miami would have played Virginia in the ACC championship, and Notre Dame would be in the field because Miami either would have won that game or lost it and been eliminated, and Virginia would be in, but you'd have an ACC champion in the field. And because you don't have an ACC champion in the field in a title game between Miami and Virginia, Notre Dame was excluded because Notre Dame was the team that was left out of the final 2 for 1 spot debate and conversation and selection, and Miami was included. Now, the controversy stems from last week's final college football playoff rankings show, where the committee unveils their current rankings. This is before conference championship weekend. Miami was ranked 2 spots behind Notre Dame. BYU was in between the two of them. And neither team played over the weekend. Miami was not in the ACC title game. They should have been. And Notre Dame isn't in a conference, so they don't play in conference championship games. And BYU, the team in between them, lost for the second time to Texas Tech, and it wasn't even really close. They dropped back, and now Notre Dame and Miami were within one spot of each other. And the confusion was the committee essentially said we weren't going to take their head-to-head meeting into consideration until they were side by side in our rankings. Now, Notre Dame and Miami, schedule strength of record, power profile, almost any metric used to determine where a team should be ranked for the college football playoff, they were almost identical in all of those metrics, all of those measurements. The numbers were almost identical, maybe a spot or two off. The tiebreaker, and by the way, it's part of the formula in determining one team's ranking over another, is head-to-head and was head-to-head. And Miami, back in August, Labor Day weekend, beat Notre Dame in Miami, Hard Rock Stadium, 27-24. So they chose Miami over Notre Dame. Now, the reason that people weren't sure that the head-to-head would be the decider, even though it makes sense that it should be, is because the committee ranked Notre Dame 2 spots ahead of Miami a week ago. And neither team played, so how could it change? Well, it changed, according to the committee, that once they were put side by side with BYU falling back, that's when head-to-head became part of the calculus. Okay, I fault the committee and the way they sort of displayed it. And by the way, the communication of it was not very good through the course of the show all season long. But this is not the first time there's been controversy with the college football selection shows week to week. It's been that way since they started doing it for the 4-team playoff. The communication hasn't always been there. There are things that haven't made sense. But bottom line is, based on their criteria for determining the field, they got it right. Now, you can argue that head-to-head should matter, but there is a difference in head-to-head August and head-to-head, let's say, if they had played in November. Because teams evolve and they are better. And personally, I believe Notre Dame was one of the best 4 or 5 teams in the country. And I think Notre Dame's better than Miami right now. I think if they played, Notre Dame would beat Miami right now. But they did play, and they played back in August, and Miami beat Notre Dame. And so logic, and along with the rules, their selection criteria, head-to-head is essentially a major portion of determining their rankings. And because everything else was identical, they went to head-to-head, and Miami beat Notre Dame, and Miami jumped Notre Dame and took the last spot. Now, what followed was, I think, incredibly surprising, if not shocking. And what followed was Notre Dame's reaction to this. Their athletic director, Pete Bavacqua, was on with Dan Patrick. Well, first thing that happened is they were outraged, completely outraged. What are you asking me to do, Max? Sorry. Check my phone, or do you want to just tell me what I'm checking?
Yeah, John Keim just tweeted Jaden Daniels will not play Sunday per Dan Quinn. So that's what I figured would be super important, unrelated to this, but it did just get announced. So I figured I'd get in your ear and tell you right away.
What's the reason that he's not playing Sunday?
Let's head out to the presser. Give me one moment. I know we wanted to close the show with it, but since this is
no, I want to. Everybody wants to hear that. They don't want to hear about Notre Dame right now.
So
Let's go hear what Dan Quinn said about why Jaden Daniels is out for Sunday against the Giants.
His elbow injury in the game, no structural setbacks. However, through the medical evaluations, over the last couple of days, including this morning, doctors advised us we hold him this Sunday, and so Marcus will start. And we're really bummed for Jaden. Like, he is working incredibly hard to get back on the field with his guys, and so tough deal. He's absolutely going for it. So wanted to get that out as we got started, and glad to open up to you guys and get rolling as we get ready for the Giants.
Anticipate him coming back this season, and what's, again, the value, I guess, with
Sure.
all 3 of them?
Well, I know that's why I wanted to come out. He's going to be out this week. He'll practice as we're going in a limited fashion, but let's see where we're at next week. We're always gonna make the best decisions, John, for him, for the team, what the medical, opinions are. So we kind of just wanted to give you that information today, and then we can work into next week.
Yes. Also, as you look forward with some other positions and all that, and we talked about the young guys playing, et cetera, that 2024, the second and third round picks, you had a lot of those guys. Have you gotten the impact that you feel you've needed from them this year? I know people don't develop linearly, right? But have you gotten that impact from that group that maybe you need, and what you need to see from them moving forward?
Yeah, I think I don't want to do like an end of year assessment, like as we're going this week, but it's really important over the next weeks of what we can do, what we can get done. And so all of, last year's class, this year's class, when we get our chances to go make your mark, you've got to be able to go do that. So we can visit on that postseason, but I think right now I'm just kind of really worried about them developing and playing well in this game.
I just want to clarify one thing. You said after the game that he could have gone back in.
Correct.
So this was discovered further imaging on Monday.
Yeah, the imaging was good, so there's no structural setbacks. But just like most players, you talk to them on a Sunday, and then again, what Monday feels like, and not quite the same of swelling or strength and those things to go into it. So it was confirmed no structural in the evaluation at the game, and then again this week.
I know, again, you said post game that wasn't acceptable in all three phases. But just looking at the offense, how have you felt the O-line has developed together since Sam Cosme came back? And then have you gotten what you've wanted out of the skill players? I know there's been that rotation of injuries. But.
Yeah. It's hard to not see the game. It really is, because there was a lot that I liked about our offensive line, 13 days ago or whatever. So having Sam come back and find continuity with Josh, these guys are going to play a lot of football together. And so I think that's like a good step, Nikki, where that continuity takes place. At the receiver spot, it's not just plug and play, and the continuity is important. And so having, Noah and Terry and Debo, Trey back into the whole practice, full speed reps, that definitely, it's a big deal for us. And, as we move forward, over these next weeks, I think we'll continue to see the benefit of that moving forward.
Coach, just back to Jaden for a second. Sure. On a lot of his runs, you could see when he's sort of done running, giving himself up, he's trying to fight for extra yards. And a lot of times I'll notice he sort of dives forward or head first. Do you mind that, or would you rather see maybe more like a base runner slide, or does that matter at all?
No, it's a great question. And it's a common one. So there's two different ways that you can give yourself up. If you're diving, they begin the spot where it is, and it's, roll to a side and dive that way. Either way, the protection is there. You're giving yourself up with the dive or with a slide. So both of them are techniques, and just matters, where you're at, what you feel more comfortable with, but it's pretty common both ways when you're giving yourself up. If you're not, and you're straining for yards, just, straight away, then that's a whole different topic. But as far as the play's over, I'm a slide or dive. Those are both, effective ways to do it. And sometimes it's to one side this way, to my left that way. And that's pretty common for a lot of the QBs.
I know the initial injury was a dislocation. Can you provide any other information on what happened to aggravate it? Whether it was another
landing on it, full on, like
a bruise or a. I guess the question is, did he re-dislocate it?
No. Yes, there's no structural setbacks at all. So just sometimes the heavy hit of something can, cause, the re-aggravation, but no setback. So there's no dislocation of that. The structural part is good, but obviously the one thing you don't want to do is land directly on it. And so, is that Murphy's Law or something like that? The one thing that can't happen. And so, there's no structural setbacks. So I want to make sure I was super clear on that.
And then obviously it was kind of fluky that he was chasing down a guy after an interception. As a coach, are you good with him doing that? Do you like seeing him try to make a play, or would you prefer that he not?
Fortunately, it's not a scenario we're in a lot with him. So I'm super thankful for that. And, it's not something that we, practice a whole lot, or techniques of that. And so you get blocked, some as a person that's going after, but like the guy's a competitive player, and we're not going to live our whole life scared. I can promise you that, but we're going to do everything and all the time, like great decisions for him, for the team, and where we're at. But yeah, I'm fortunate that we don't talk about a play like that a lot.
Obviously, injuries are never a good thing, but for Benson, with obviously you guys, losing Zach Ertz for the year with the torn ACL, could this be a?
All right, that was Dan Quinn. Wanted to let that play because I figured there would be more questions about Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels has been ruled out for the game Sunday against the Giants. And with respect to the future, they will see how it plays out when they get there next week. But he is going to be, and I guess maybe we missed this right from the beginning, he is going to be available, I think, to practice some this week. Like, he's not being held out of practice completely. So Nikki asked a really good question about, how did we go from could have returned in the game to on Monday, it's just soreness, to now he's out. And, I'm going to take them at their word that this, after a day and a half or 2 days, the doctors just feel, it's more sore and it's, he's not able to, do whatever he needs to do with it. And they're going to hold him out of the Giant game. But I think my reaction to this right now is he might be done for the year, because if they're going to hold him out, and let me just be real clear on something. If he's not 100%, I don't want him to play. My feeling yesterday was if he was just sore, I'd have put him back in the game. If he's just sore, he should play against the Giants. If he's injured, he shouldn't play against the Giants. He shouldn't play unless he's 100% healthy. Soreness doesn't go into the conversation of injury or being injured or risk increase. Everybody's sore in the NFL, especially this time of year. So he kept emphasizing no structural setbacks, but he's not going to play. So, they tried to drill down, multiple questions tried to drill down, and he wasn't really giving you what it is. Like, hey, the bottom line is, he could have come back in, and I did describe it as sore, but it's different today. It's different today. It's actually a little bit worse off, and it's a little bit, the doctors feel like probably shouldn't go. I don't think he's playing again this year. I hope it's not just because they just don't see any value in playing him and they're worried about the risk. Because he said there, what did he say? He said, we're not going to I wrote down the quote. Now I can't find it.
We're not going to play scared.
We're not going to coach scared, I think is what he said.
Yeah.
I hope they're not coaching scared right now. I know many of you would say, no, Sheehan, they're coaching smart. That's the franchise. You protect him. Okay. Protect him from what? If he's just sore. But apparently he's more than just sore. What did you guys hear? 301-230-0980. We'll take your calls next.
All right. Happy Wednesday, everybody, or less than happy now after Jaden Daniels has been ruled out for the game against the Giants on Sunday. Also, for the Commanders, they play Zach Ertz on injured reserve and signed Chase Edmonds off of the practice squad. To baseball we go. The Chicago White Sox have won the MLB draft lottery. They will be selecting first overall in 2026. Meanwhile, the Nationals hold the number 11 overall pick. Speaking of the Nats, John Morosi is reporting that the Nats and O's have been in communication about Mackenzie Gore. While there's been no indication that a deal is close, could potentially mark the first trade between the franchises since the Nats came to town in 2005 and gives a little insight into how the Nats are shopping Mackenzie Gore. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1. You can catch programs like Take Command and Denton's Office throughout all of football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
Jaden Daniels out for Sunday against the Giants. Dan Quinn announced that a little while ago. They didn't take this one until the end of the week. Kind of interesting when you consider that he could return Sunday, then he's sore on Monday, but now the doctors are advising him not to play this early in the week on a Wednesday. But there's no serious injury, no structural setback, nothing like that to the elbow. We are talking about, by the way, the non-throwing elbow again. Real quickly, because several of you have sent this to me, about the, is it the Ringer who wrote this? Daniel's scrambling rate is up by 3 percentage points over last season. That's a number Washington wanted to bring down after Daniel scrambled on nearly 13% of his dropbacks as a rookie. His scramble rate is up to 15.7% in 2025. This is worrisome, the Ringer writes. So, I mean, the scrambling rate's up by a whole 3 percentage points, 2.7 to be exact, over last year. Let me just put a little bit of context to that, just a little bit, okay? Because I want his scramble rate to come down. I want his scrambles to be play extensions to throw the football, which we've seen some of this year, but not as much as last year, in part because he hasn't played there anywhere near the amount he played last year. But let me just real quickly mention that the one game, the game that really you have to throw out in terms of a measurement and an evaluation game for Jaden is the Seattle game. Because of the fact that we've learned, most of us have, you can check with Kime and Logan and everybody else, receivers in the game that were in that particular game weren't even running the correct routes. Remember how quickly he would take off and run? It's because he looked to where they were supposed to be. They weren't there. Well, that Seattle game by far and away was his highest scramble game of the year. He had 9 scrambles in that game out of his 10 rushing attempts. So it was by far and away the highest scramble percentage of the season. You take the other games, the scramble percentage overall was equal to or less than what it was last year. So that game does skew it higher, the Seattle game. And there's a lot of us that know at least the feeling out there as to why he had to scramble in the Seattle game. What do you think you heard Dan Quinn say? Because my immediate reaction is he's done for the year. Maybe, a bit premature. You come back and play against Philly and Dallas. You're probably not going to play him in the season finale. Most teams that are out of it, that's the game where it's like, let's protect our best players and let's give our young guys a shot to play. I mean, there's no Sam Howell situation here that we got to, Taylor Heineke's going to have to talk the coaches into playing. Let's go to Randy in Leesburg. Randy, what did you think you heard the coach say?
Hey, Kevin, thanks for taking my call. Just want to say,
Sure.
quick, big fan, love the show, love the podcast.
Thanks.
You spent a few moments with me at the Burgundy Sold show a couple of years ago. I appreciate that. Anyway, it may be odd, but I think you absolutely, if I'm managing this, you have to consider the playing surface up there. It sucks. The NFLPA hates it. I know it's more
true
knee related, leg related, but when it's going to be cold, it's going to be a hard surface. You're dealing with this kind of injury. I think 100% the playing surface has to factor in. I'd hold them out too. The last 3 are all on natural grass at home and in Philly. Let them play. But I would consider it for sure.
That's an interesting point, and you are right. The Meadowlands, that turf is among the top 2 or 3 in the league in terms of they want it out. The players hate it. We've seen so many non-contact injuries. And yeah, it's going to be cold, but it's not. I don't think it's supposed to snow. I mean, I can look up that forecast in a moment. Yeah. All right. Let's go to Anthony. Anthony, go ahead. What do you think you heard the coach say?
Kevin, at this point, it's almost like this is a Murphy's Law year. Murphy's Law season.
Yeah.
And I think they're being...
So they're superstitious?
It's at the point now. No, it's at the point now, like you like to say, is the juice worth the squeeze? I agree that he needs the reps and he needs to play, but is he really going to benefit from it at this point? I think that's debatable. And the last thing that they will want to happen is to put him out there for meaningless games and then something disastrous just happens. I think the year is a wash. Like you said, I think he's done for the year.
We're getting Anthony. Remember, like the conversation started with 5 or 6 games left, right before the Denver. If the Denver game was a possibility, we were talking about more than a third of the season left. Once we got to 5 games, we were talking about nearly 30%. Now we're talking about 3 games left when he comes. If this time next week, when we have our next conversation about him playing, so. The amount of opportunities left has always been a driver of this. I felt you don't sit your starting quarterback with 30% of the season left or a third of the season left. Quinn said the same thing. So now if he's ruled out for this week, now we're talking about, at the end of the day, we're talking about 1/6 almost of the season left. So yeah, it's a little bit different. And that's why I feel like by the time we get back to December 20th, which is a short week, not for him, but for everybody else going into it off of Sunday's game because it's a Saturday afternoon game, that maybe we've seen the last of Jaden Daniels this year.
I agree. I mean, like I said, like your mantra is the juice going to be worth the squeeze at this point of the year?
Yeah.
It's debatable. It's debatable.
5 games left for me, 0. Of course it is. That's my view.
Right.
We get down to 2 or 3 games left. Yeah, maybe not. Although 3 games left and he's going to play in 2 of them, I think I wouldn't mind seeing it. But yeah, thanks, Anthony. Appreciate it. Let's go to Paulie. Hail to the W.
Big guy, hail to the W, man. I think I heard a couple of things. I think he said they're not gonna be coaching scared, but I think they are coaching scared.
I think so too.
Yeah, they coaching scared. And also, I'm starting to question how close to 100% was he. I know no player's at 100%, but you're telling me one fall to the ground, he's sore, and now he's out for the week? I mean, it just sounds like, like the last caller just said, is not, the risk ain't worth the reward anymore because he's not playing for anything. And also, I think Cliff thinks at this point, Mariota gives him a better option because his offense, I think he thought his offense was hamstrung last week. They didn't want to run Jaden. They didn't want to run any read options. They didn't do any quarterback powers. And as we know, that's part of Cliff's offense.
Yeah, so, we'll see it Sunday with Marcus. We will definitely see it Sunday with Marcus. And by the way, against a not very good defensive team, the way they've been playing recently, the Giants.
And like we've been saying for the past couple of weeks now, they desperate for a win. We just said he can't go, he can't lose out the rest of the season. This is their best opportunity for a win for the rest of the season outside of that last game because you don't know what Philly will be playing for. But
the Giants right now, by the way, Paulie, the Giants right now, 31st in the league in run defense.
Okay. Yeah, we don't run the ball, so what does that matter?
No, I'm making the point for you that he likes to run the ball with the quarterback being involved. The quarterback was not involved in the run game Sunday in Minnesota by choice and by protection. With Marcus Mariota, Mariota's going to run 5 quarterback counters and zone reads minimum in this game.
Right.
He'll be a part of the run game.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, so like I said, I think Kingsbury felt like he was handcuffed last week. And that's what he wants as part of his offense. And I'm gonna say it again. I don't think Dan Quinn trusts him to keep Jaden protected.
All right,
coach is scared.
See ya. Let's go to Frank in Charlotte. Frank, what'd you hear?
Yeah, what I heard, I kind of what Paul is saying here. I don't think that Dan trusts Cliff, but a lot of that. Let's just be real. A lot of it, they see the film. Okay, they see the film too. They see the same film that Kirk Warner saw, and I don't care what anybody says. The guy hasn't played well all year. Okay, that's why his scramble rate is up. He's not seeing a lot of the stuff. Yeah, maybe the Seattle game they were running the wrong routes, but there were other games. I counted 3, and I've actually have looked at the all 22. When McCaffrey was actually healthy, there were 3 seam routes that he could have walked in for touchdowns. And he actually was looking at him, and I'm just telling you, okay. A lot of
I'm just telling you,
right now.
He graded out very highly in the Charger game, the Chicago game.
Okay.
And the scramble rate number was skewed by the Seattle game, where he scrambled 9 times out of the 10 rushes in the game. It was his highest scramble number of the season. And the reason for that is it was a complete S show at wide receiver that night. By the way, an S show up front, too. It was one of the few games, along with the Dallas and Green Bay games, in which they got handled at the line of scrimmage. But anyway, yeah, I mean, look, overall, if he's hurt, I don't want him playing. Thanks for the call, by the way, Frank. I'm at the end of the show. I don't want him playing if he's legitimately hurt. Clearly, I think we would all agree with that. I just think it's odd how we got here from Sunday. Could have returned to just soreness. He's fine. To now the doctors are saying he shouldn't play. But there's nothing serious, no structural setbacks. And by the way, it's very possible that between Monday and today, it got really sore. And it got to the point where it's like, I don't feel right. If he doesn't feel right, no. Chris Russell next.